At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Hey, what do you say, fellow Americans, on a Wednesday, October 15? Good to see you today, and thank you for joining us. Here we are, the Bill Press Show. We are here in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, keeping our eye on what's going on here in Washington, around the country, and around the globe, bringing you up to date and giving you a chance to talk about it all. Here we are with you on Free Speech TV nationwide. Thanks for joining us. And worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Hello, worldwide. Thank you again for being there. On the Ebola front, bad news out of Dallas. We knew it could happen. We knew it certainly would happen. A second healthcare worker at the Dallas Presbyterian Hospital, also one who treated the West African patient, Thomas Eric Duncan. That healthcare worker, a second one now, has also contracted the disease. We don't know who it is. We don't know how he or she got the disease, but a second healthcare worker infected. Meanwhile, the word on Nurse Nina Pham is that her condition is described as good. In West Africa, not so good. Over 8,900 cases of Ebola reported, over 4,400 dead so far. And the World Health Organization predicts that we could be seeing 10,000 cases a month by December. On the ISIS front, President Obama meeting with military commanders from around the world yesterday out at Andrews Air Force Base to review our strategy against ISIS. Are the airstrikes working? Doesn't really look like that. ISIS is close to taking Kobani. They've reached within 15 miles of Baghdad, and one of their suicide bombers was able to successfully penetrate Baghdad yesterday, blow himself up, and kill 24 people. Lots to talk about today. Sorry, we'll get it straight. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS, and it's good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You know, sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'm not necessarily looking out and seeing all these water-wasting lawns and people that aren't as connected to their neighbors and their lives as they could be. I'm walking down the street looking, going, edible oases, rainwater, fed landscape, and just looking at the possibility of these sort of landscapes up and down the streets of neighborhoods and communities all across this world. Small actions do ripple, and they add up and they have a cumulative impact. And so when you're building upon your small mindful actions, you know, you have the confidence and the ability to take on something a little bit greater. So that would be nice. This, in the context of where we're at as a planet with climate change and these really big issues and people that are more disconnected and less skilled than ever, it becomes even more amazing and powerful how much of a solution this is to design these ecological gardens and to come together with shared vision and shared voice. There's never been a time where your choices have mattered more. Doing something as simple as us transforming a landscape creates a model that anybody could look at far and wide, and you're sharing food and connecting and building skills together in your own neighborhood. It's a richer way to live in normal times, but in the new normal of climate change and erratic weather and economic upheaval, it becomes essential. Whether it's me, you, Gandhi, Che, MLK, Willy Wonka, whoever, past, present, or future, the power of our daily actions is all that we have. And like our community said, give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I'll move the world. And that's what those simple actions do. They move the world every day.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
We knew it had to happen, and it has happened in Dallas. Ebola case, homegrown. Number 2, a second healthcare worker who treated the patient from West Africa has come down with the disease. Oh, my God. What do you say? Hello, everybody. Good to see you on this Wednesday. We are halfway through the month of October. October 15, here we go with all the news of the day from Dallas, from Washington, from around the country, from Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria as well, where it's not such good news. We'll bring it all to you and not only tell you what's going, but give you a chance to tell us what it all means to you. Good to see you this Wednesday here on your local progressive talk radio station, starting your day in the very liberal, progressive way. We're also there with you, of course, on the radio through your electronic device apps, either the TuneIn app or the iHeartRadio app. Download one or both of them, and you can reach us on the radio. You can also watch us on Free Speech TV, and worldwide, you can tune in and watch us on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV, TawkrTV. Here in Washington, D.C., the team has assembled this morning. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Hello, hello.
Good morning, Bill.
Yes.
Hello.
Indeed. Hello, Bernie. Yes.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on.
Alicia Cruz there with the phones, warming up the phones for your calls at 866-55-PRESS. If you call now and get in line, then you might be, have a better chance of getting on the air. Even though you don't know what we're going to be talking about yet, you can just make up your comments as you go along. Yes.
That's what you do, right?
We love that.
And how about, you're all looking good on camera this morning. Thank you to Cyprian Bolding, not Igor Volsky. He is not running the cameras. No, I got that wrong.
Not like yesterday.
Not like yesterday, no. Carol reminded me when I got home that I gotten that wrong, man. She watches every little move. Can't make a mistake. So it's Cyprian Bolding, our videographer.
Man, not even at work, huh? You can't get away, huh?
Oh, no. She
Hi,
listens.
Carol.
Maybe not this early. Yes, indeed. Baseball got the weather improved. Baseball got back in play last night, and first of all, the Giants' home team advantage in San Francisco, but they are also helped by a little wild throw. Here's what it sounded like on KMOX from St. Louis, where they were, not too thrilled with the way it ended up.
Now the pitch. Here's a bunt. That's fielded by Choate. His play is at first, and he throws it away. The Giants win. Choate threw the ball down the right field line, and the Giants go up 2-1. A throwing error allows the winning run 5-4 in the bottom of the 10th.
He doesn't sound very happy
no.
about that.
He throws it away. The Giants win. That's sad. I mean, to see somebody do that. But this is the second game in the playoffs that was won by a throwaway pitch. Remember Bumgarner or whatever his name was?
Yeah.
Right?
The Giants and the Nationals.
Yeah.
That did it.
That did it. That one game, right? Where the Nats. That was the one game the Nats won, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because they lost the ball in the what they call not the dugout,
dugout,
The bullpen.
the bullpen, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Royals and the Orioles, the O's, had a chance to maybe get back in the game last night. Didn't quite make it. In Kansas City, the Royals, they are red hot.
Really are, man.
Here we go.
There's a line drive up the middle, a couple of bounces. The second baseman, Infante, he'll go to first base to get the out, and the ball game is over. And the Orioles again in the loss column. Kansas City is unbeaten in the postseason. They have won 7 straight, and they now lead the Orioles 3-0 in the best-of-7 American League Championship Series.
Baltimore announcer trying to make the most of it,
man.
just giving out the facts. But look at Kansas City. Who would have thunk, right?
Look,
A sweep.
They came alive at the last. So far, they have not 7 straight.
look at
Unbelievable.
Kansas City was just happy to be a wild card team.
Yeah, wild card. Let's
mean, they were
remember. Let's
freaking out
remember
because
they won the wild card.
They hadn't been in the playoffs since like '85, and so they were just excited to just have a chance. And then they haven't lost a game yet.
No, they are the
Poor Orioles.
I know they are the Cinderella team. So we're not going to have the Beltway series. Well, we knew that a long time
Keep hope
ago.
alive. Keep
Yes.
hope alive. The O's can definitely come back.
If they win
It's a
the
best
ne-
of 7,
they
you gotta
can win the next 4. They gotta
It has
win.
been done.
It has been done. Yeah, but I don't know
Very
when.
often.
Yeah. So they both play again tonight, right? And it is then 2-1. Giants ahead of the Cardinals. 3-0. The Royals ahead of the Orioles, right? Man, okay, we'll keep our eye on that. Randi Weingarten, one of our most dynamic labor leaders in the country, head of the American Federation of Teachers, will be here in studio with us a little bit later. Daniel Stone from National Geographic. And we'll go down to Kentucky. What's going on with the Senate race down there? Sam Youngman from the Lexington, Kentucky Herald-Leader will join us, and we'll get right to all the news of the day. But first,
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Bill, you mentioned Ebola and the second Ebola case here in America. There is some good news in the war on Ebola. Yesterday, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg announced that he and his wife, Priscilla Chan, are going to be donating $25 million to the CDC Foundation to help. You good over there? You mixed up
I'm mixing up my little
your
morning.
martini this morning and getting what you need?
Yeah.
They are $25 million to the CDC Foundation. The money is going to go directly to the CDC's response effort in Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, along with other hot spots in the world where Ebola is a threat.
Good for them.
Putting his money
Good
where
for
his
them.
mouth is
Yep.
there. Yeah. We go to Napa, Half Moon Bay.
Better what the Koch brothers are doing with their money.
That's a very good point. Half Moon Bay in California, a California farmer by the name of John Hockley has grown the North American world record pumpkin. He has grown a 2,058-pound pumpkin, which is, again, a North American record. It comes up a little bit short of the world record. The world record is about 265 pounds heavier. That happened in Germany. Now, some people are saying that this isn't the best use of water in a drought-stricken state, that apparently you have to have water to grow a pumpkin that grows to be 2,058 pounds. But just putting that out there.
But just Half Moon Bay, just south of San Francisco. As soon as you said it, I knew it had something to do with pumpkins. I mean,
Really?
that's where all the big pumpkin fields are.
The pumpkin
in
patch.
California is right there. Half Moon Bay. That's what it's known for.
Never seen one that big, though.
No, I haven't.
And New Bedford, Massachusetts, a pilot of a single-engine aircraft did a belly slide at the runway at New Bedford Regional Airport yesterday afternoon. Police and fire trucks raced onto the scene to see what happened. Turns out the man, who has not been named yet, had a bee in the cockpit.
Oh my goodness.
And was very distracted, so he didn't put his landing gear down.
Oh.
Because he was fighting off a bee that was trying to sting him. So he thought he had his landing gear down, and he just slid right on into the airport.
There's never a manual for that.
Yeah, no. And so he was a little freaked out, so he forgot to put down the...
You just open the window, let the bee fly out.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a pilot, so maybe I'm off base here, but yeah, that seems to be an easy way
Well,
to get
I'm
that.
glad he...
He's okay.
I'm glad he and the bee landed safely. Yes. 15 minutes after the hour now. Yes, indeed. On the Ebola front, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Wanted to start on a little different tack this morning, and that is because I heard so much about this yesterday at our White House briefing, and that is how are we doing? And the real question is, do you think we're winning the war against ISIS? Do you believe our strategy against ISIS, from what you see and what you hear in the news, do you think it is working? Well, on two fronts yesterday, ISIS dominated White House activities. First, President Obama, early afternoon, went out to Andrews Air Force Base, where he met with a very unusual group, the leaders of the military from 21 different countries who are part of the coalition of forces joining the United States in fighting ISIS. These are the equivalent of the heads of their, like General Martin Dempsey is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs here. These are his equivalents in 21 different countries. President met with them. We were told yesterday by Josh Earnest they were there to review our ISIS strategy, not to revise it or update it, but to review it. President Obama again met with them, and he reminded them what the goal here is.
We are united in our goal to degrade and ultimately destroy ISIL so that it's no longer a threat to Iraq, to the region, or the international community.
And the president reminded them, we are in this for the long haul because it's going to take a long time.
This is going to be a long-term campaign. There are not quick fixes involved. We're still at the early stages. As with any military effort, there will be days of progress, and there are going to be periods of setback.
And while the president was meeting with the military leaders, Josh was meeting with us, reporters at the White House, and exuding confidence in the Iraqi military, exuding confidence in the moderate Syrian opposition, exuding confidence in Kurdish forces. And Josh said again, these are the people we're depending on as our boots on the ground.
The president's made a strategic decision that they will not be American boots on the ground in a combat role taking the fight to ISIL. But what we can do is we can build up the capacity of Iraq's security forces, and we can build up the capacity of Syrian opposition fighters to take the fight to ISIL.
Yes. The question, of course, is when. And Josh admitted yesterday that they haven't even started recruiting yet. They haven't even started signing up volunteers from the so-called moderate Syrian opposition. And so whenever they do that, that's going to take some time. And then the training, we're told, will take at least 6 months whenever that starts. And at the end of that, we will have some 5,000 boots on the ground from the Syrian moderate opposition up against, now with American airstrikes for sure, but up against some 30,000 estimated ISIS fighters. But the question is, and again, Josh Earnest was asked this yesterday by several different reporters, what evidence do you have that this campaign is working, that these strikes are working? Remember, we're already doing the airstrikes, and we're probably at least, I'd say, 8 or 9 months, maybe a year, from having boots on the ground to go with the airstrikes. In the meantime, I got to tell you, I want to hear from you. I don't think this is necessarily working. Look at what's happened in just the last week or so. The ISIS is very, very close to taking Kobani, this town in Syria right on the Turkish border. We learned yesterday that ISIS now controls the 2 provinces on either side of Baghdad, particularly in most most disturbingly, the Anbar province, which leads right up into Baghdad. Baghdad's right in the middle between these two provinces, both of which ISIS controls. ISIS forces are now within 15 miles of Baghdad. That's how close they are to the capital. Yesterday, a suicide bomber was able to penetrate the security of Baghdad and blow himself up and kill 24 people. ISIS is within striking distance. And so we don't have the moderate Syrian opposition armed yet, but we got the Iraqi military. And once again, yesterday, Josh Earnest was expressing our confidence in the Iraqi military, that what we've done is equip these people, and we count on them to defend themselves, that ultimately they're the only ones that can do it. Yeah, agreed, but will they? We saw what happened a few months ago, the first time they encountered the ISIS military. What did the Iraqi soldiers do? What the Iraqi military do? Drop their weapons, turn around and ran, and left all of those weapons with ISIS. That's where they got most of their stuff today, from the Iraqi military, and they're our weapons. Well, just last week, there was another military base in Anbar province held by the Iraqi military. The ISIS forces stormed it, and what did the Iraqi military do? One more time? There were some 450 soldiers there. They dropped their weapons, and they turned around, and they fled back to Baghdad. It's the same deal. So, you keep looking for where are the signs of success. Certainly, and what Josh Earnest keeps talking about is we got the Mosul Dam back. We got the Mosul Dam back. Okay, all right. Let's put that on the winning side. But on the losing side, you've got Anbar province, you've got Kobani, you've got this military base, and you've got the ISIS forces within 15 miles of Baghdad. I got to tell you, I think Baghdad could be lost before those ground troops are even on the ground, before those boots are even on the ground from the Syrian military. Doesn't look to me like our strategy is working. And may I add just one other thing before we take your calls here at 866-55-PRESS. Lead story in the New York Times this morning. How do you like this headline? CIA study says arming rebels seldom works. They look back 67 years from Angola to Nicaragua to Cuba. This is the CIA saying, we gave all these rebels all these weapons. This was going to be our secret to winning these particular wars. And in each case, it was a total failure. And now we are arming the rebels in Syria, and we think it's going to work. Do you? 866-55-PRESS. Let's talk about it. On this Wednesday, The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job, and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand, and they don't get it, and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all of the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Airstrikes against ISIS continue. Any confidence that they are working? 866-55. It seems to me that maybe we should have had the ground. Look, I know. I hate to be an armchair general, as they say, or a Monday morning quarterback, whatever the cliche is, but seems to me that we should have had the ground forces ready to go when the airstrike started. Then the combination maybe could work, right? But we're going to do airstrikes for a whole year, and then before the ground troops get there, and think this is going to work. Tom, out in Albuquerque, New Mexico. What do you say, Tom?
Hey, Bill. How are
Hi.
you?
Good.
It's so darn complicated.
It is that. Yep.
I think the president had to do the airstrikes. Things were beginning to just totally unravel, the Mosul Dam and all that other stuff. But he does not want to use U.S. ground troops. We're stuck with what we've got. We've got this group of, Free Syrian Army, whatever they are.
Yeah.
And we've got the Iraqi Army, which is just pathetic. But what I find curious, and I don't know anybody else who finds this curious, I never hear anything about Assad attacking ISIS within Syria or ISIS attacking Assad within Syria. I wonder if there's some degree of collusion.
Yeah, good question. I'll tell you what I do hear about is that now Assad is attacking the moderate Syrian opposition because we're attacking ISIS. So indirectly,
This is the Bill Press
helping
Show.
him.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
All right, 34 minutes after the hour, President Obama meeting with top military leaders from around the world, members of our coalition yesterday, and he, through Josh Earnest, press secretary, exuding confidence yesterday, saying our strategy is working, the airstrikes are working, we're doing the right thing against ISIS. We can count on the Syrian moderate opposition to be the ground forces whenever we get around to recruiting and training them someday. We can count on the Iraqi military to do their job. Our strategy against ISIS is working. Does it look like that to you? 866-55-PRESS. And on the comment line,
So we are on Twitter, at BP Show. At BP Show. Don't forget it. Please use that.
Yes, we want to hear from you. Yes.
I have to mention, we got one comment from the ILC on Twitter. Just wanted us to know, I'm still listening from Paris. So I don't know if that's meant to make you jealous of the fact that the ILC is in Paris. But we do have a listener in Paris. So good morning.
Hello. And I wish I were there with you in Paris. Yes, God, I'm telling you. I was in Paris in April and end of March. In March. It's just my favorite city outside of the United States in the world.
All right, that's it. All right.
Yeah.
We also have some comments on this current topic. Mama for Obama, weighing in, Bill, says, it's been 2 weeks, dude. U.S. media always wants fast food victories.
It's been 2 months, Mama. All right. 2 months and 1 week, Mama. And again, where are the results? That's all I'm saying. Where are the results? Mosul Dam, we'll give you that one. Where else have we slowed ISIS down? They're gaining more territory every day. And if they take Kobani, we're not going to drive them out with airstrikes. Doesn't work in urban centers. Linda is in, oh boy, Kansas City. Linda, congratulations. Royals. Whoa.
Yes, I love those Royals. My question was, and I haven't heard this in any of the conversations, and I was wondering, has there been any discussion or consideration of contracted soldiers? It's my understanding that we did have some contract soldiers during the Iraqi war, and where are they? Aren't they able to contract with some of these countries in order to get some viable boots on their ground in order to fight their war?
Well, that's an excellent question. So first of all, the president has certainly ruled out American boots on the ground, right? So in a sense, we have contracted. Well, that's not the same. I guess we've made deals with other countries who say they will provide the boots on the ground, right? The UAE and the Saudis are supposed to, but we haven't seen any yet. I think they promised to. We're trying to get the Turkish government to commit some troops, although they haven't come through yet. And then we've made this deal that we are going to train and arm the moderate Syrian opposition, but we haven't started recruiting them yet. I guess if we put out the word for, what is that, Soldiers of Fortune? Is that what they're called?
Right, yeah.
Worldwide? We might be able to round up a group, Linda, but then, boy, what will we be dealing with them then? I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question. I just don't think we want to go there, but so far, we haven't been able to count on our allies to do much either. Again, I come back to, we're being told this. I'm not trying just to be a pessimist and to throw cold water on this. We're told at the White House, told at the Pentagon, that we're going to train the Syrian moderate opposition, but it will take at least 6 months, and it hasn't started yet. We haven't even started recruiting yet. And at the end of that period, they say, we'll have 5,000 forces trained and ready to go. But when? Mary is in Woodbridge, Virginia. What do you think, Mary? Is it working?
Well, I'm thinking that the CIA sent our president that memo before we got it.
Oh,
and I think he's working off of that, and he knows that. And hang in there. He's going to get this job done. He's a slow guy. We all know that.
Yeah, but Mary, the memo to the CIA, internal CIA memo that was just released, all right, these were studies commissioned in 2012, I'm just reading here, in 2013, the study says this doesn't work. It says we've tried this strategy for the last 67 years, and it hasn't worked.
And I think we've all known that for the last,
But now
in
the
my
president,
case, 67 years.
right. We see what happened in Cuba, Bay of Pigs, right? But now the president is going against this strategy and saying, no, this time it's going to work.
Now, I think that he's got a plan, and I think it's with special forces, and I think we ought to let the man do his job.
All right, special forces. Those are American boots on the ground, Mary. I just want to point that out. Perry is in Chicago, the great WCPT. Hello, Perry.
Hi, how are you?
All right, what do you think?
Yes, you can see every day in the news the strategy is absolutely not working. I mean, they keep advancing more and more. They're murdering innocent people over there, children, Christians.
Looks that way to me.
They're getting more propaganda out there to recruit more. None of us, if you're Republican or Democrat, want to see American kids killed, but we have to do something to stop this. We can't rely on people who are not going to help themselves, and we have to do something to help ourselves in our future. Stop letting these guys get the momentum and the recruiting power to recruit more individuals to eventually come to our shores. If we could send 4,000 troops on the ground to fight Ebola for whatever reasons, protecting our country, we need to have people over there defending. They're decapitating people, women, children. I mean, it's crazy. We have to do something to stop this.
But Perry, it looks like, I agree, it looks like that's where it's heading. And right? I mean, the president won't say that yet. The White House won't say that yet. But it looks like it has to head there because we're just not going to be able to depend. Haven't we learned, right? We're not going to be able to depend on other people to do our job for us.
Absolutely. And, the more time we stall, the more time they get entrenched, and the harder it's going to. I'm not a military person, but it's going to be harder for our troops to fight these guys when they get buried in and entrenched in all these cities.
I think that makes common sense. Then, of course, that begs the question of whether the American people, well, because what we're really talking about is a full scale, is another war. It's like Iraq War, the sequel, except this will be Iraq/Syria war. Are the American people really ready for that? I don't think so.
I think part of the question is, are the American people ready for it? But are the American people really going to accept this explanation? Like, there's a lot of gray area here. There are a lot of unanswered questions. And to be perfectly honest, we cover this a lot. And I don't totally understand this mission. I don't totally understand what's happening because we haven't been told.
Hate to be a defeatist, but so we had dinner with friends Saturday night, and we were talking about this. And the next day, one of our friends, his man and his wife, and she sent me a link to a set of maps. She said, take a look at this. And this is a set of maps. I wish I could, if I still have it, I'll give it to you, Peter. You can tweet it out to everybody or send it out to everybody. And this is a set of maps of the Middle East. And it starts with a fertile crescent. So like where the Garden of Eden was, supposedly, right? And it goes through history. And it shows, just with different colors, all the changes in how boundaries change, names of countries change, new countries were created, Christian influence, Muslim influence. I mean, it just shows it all through up to today's time and the mess that's over there today. And if you just click through those maps and then you think that we're going to resolve this whole complicated, as Perry said, complicated, that we're going to resolve this whole complicated region with 6 months of airstrikes against ISIS, you are kidding yourself.
Ugh.
Yeah, ain't going to happen. Anyhow, great conversation, folks. We're going to move on. We're going to go down to Kentucky next and find out what's happening with Mitch McConnell and Allison Lundergan Grimes. Sam Youngman, our good friend down at the Herald-Leader in Lexington, Kentucky, joins us next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate your children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 13 minutes now before the top of the hour. I'm sure you've noticed a change in Washington lately. And if you think it appears that Washington is less wild than it used to be, less lively than it used to be, there's a reason for that. At the same time, Lexington, Kentucky has become more wild and more lively, and that's because Sam Youngman, our good friend, left Washington, headed to Lexington, where he joins us early this morning. Sam Youngman, how are you?
Bill, my man, how are you?
Listen, Sam, here with Peter Ogburn, too. We've known you a long time. I've never known you to get up this early.
Well, you know, I would get up this early in Washington. I was thinking about last night, sitting on the 14th Street Bridge, you know, in the traffic's a parking lot, frantically calling Peter, say, I'll be there, man. I'll just be there, 10 minutes after you need me.
Yeah, right. Well, it's nice of you to join us by phone. Now, I want you to know, Sam, I voted for Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012. Why won't Allison Grimes say that?
Well, Bill, I think you just made it into a 30-second spot that Mitch McConnell's going to run to make sure that he beats you on his way to a sixth term. Look, I mean, the Good Grimes campaign from the beginning, I've been on here for just over a year now, and really I think everything they've done has been motivated by fear of showing up in an ad, a fear of being tied to Barack Obama. This thing, I think, just got away from them. It started out as a very sort of a simple, routine question that gathered steam the more she declined to answer it. Honestly, when I first asked it, I did not think it would turn into what it did.
Are you the one that asked the question?
I asked her about a week and a half ago after an event here in Lexington, and she just ignored the question. I asked a couple times. I actually first asked because I was calling in the spring, or actually in the late winter. Manu Raju from Politico was here, and he asked the same question.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, what he asked her was, "Would you vote for Barack Obama for a third term?"
Oh.
And she said, you need to check your facts. And so basically what I was going for was some clarity here.
Yeah.
Whether or not she'd actually gone to the ballot box and voted for Mitt Romney, which I think would have surprised us all.
Well, as you can imagine, it's what it's all everybody is talking about on this race right now, right? I mean,
I saw it made it into the briefing room yesterday.
No, exactly. I was going to say in the briefing room yesterday with all your old buddies there. The buzz before the briefing, after the and during the briefing was about Allison Grimes, and everybody was saying she's got to have some smart advisors who could tell her she's doing the wrong thing, or are her so-called smart advisors telling her she is doing the right thing? I mean, who's running? Is this just her or her campaign team?
Well,
what do you think?
That's been a big question. A lot of even the most loyal Democrats here have questioned from the beginning the campaign team she has around her. It's not a very experienced team. The inner circle, that is. Pollster TV, she's got Mark Mellman, she's got Mark Putnam, two of the best in the business.
Yeah.
But that inner circle are in-state folks who are loyal to her father, who's a former Democratic Party chairman here. And it's been a big question of party activists from the beginning was whether or not they were up to this challenge. The funniest thing to me about last week, you had these back-to-back media disasters for both candidates. You had Mitch McConnell go on a Kentucky sports program here, and he was what the host described as needlessly angry. And the next day you had Allison Lonergan Grimes with the Courier-Journal editorial board, just refusing to answer this question. And, of course, I'm sitting here like, what's the big deal? McConnell talks to me like that every day, and Allison Lonergan Grimes ignores my questions every day. So, I mean, it's been, I always tend towards hyperbole when I'm criticizing these things, but I would say this race has been about the worst American politics has to offer.
Whoa. That is really saying something. And, Peter and I were talking earlier, Sam, when you look at this, a red state, and McConnell may not be that popular, but he's a pretty powerful guy and got all the money that he needs. I mean, still, Allison Grimes, well, it's not over yet. I hate to talk in the past tense, but I mean, she had a real shot here at this race, right? I mean, she could have won this race.
Yeah, no, I think so. And I think, there's going to be, like there is after every election, there's going to be so much hand-wringing over a missed opportunity. But you're right. Yeah, let me also add, you're absolutely right. I do not think this race is over. I mean, we saw yesterday that the DSCC is pulling out, Senate Majority PAC is pulling out. But I'm still not ready to put a time of death on this thing because, as unpopular as the president is here, and that's, I think, what's driving everything is that toxic environment for Democrats. As much as that's the case, Senator McConnell and Washington, D.C. are just marginally more popular. So I think, they've both got floors and they've both got ceilings, and it's going to, I'm going to get out my cliche book and tell you it comes down to turnout.
Well, is there a ground game? I mean, do both sides have a ground game, or does she?
I mean, they're both. It's one of those things where they're both telling me they've got ground games that exceed even those of presidential campaigns. But it's one of those things where if they told me, we've reached that point in the campaign where if either side told me that the sky is blue, I'd probably get 3 or 4 different sources to confirm it.
Okay. Now, most importantly, how's nightlife in Lexington?
I couldn't tell you, man. I'll be honest with you. I've turned about it into the most boring person you could imagine.
You got one of the most exciting Senate races in the country. You've got a possible Republican candidate for president in Kentucky. I mean, there's a lot to do there besides nightlife.
I know. That's exactly right. So I lay awake at night in bed wondering, where I can actually move to really get away from Washington because it wasn't Kentucky. It's funny, I see a lot of our mutual friends flying in to cover this race, and everybody's like, how are you enjoying the change of pace? What change of pace?
Right. Too much. Well, listen, it's great to reconnect with you again, Sam. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. And maybe we'll fly in and see you. All right. See you, man.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, that'd be fun to go down there, man. We should
Hell
do
yeah,
that.
that'd be a riot.
All right. Sam Youngman from the Lexington, Kentucky Herald-Leader, Kentucky.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately I've been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Daniel Stone from the National Geographic at the top of the next hour. Peter?
Yesterday here in Washington, D.C., Bill, at the FCC building, they had a very special guest. It was Stevie Wonder.
No.
Stevie Wonder came to the FCC, and it's a very interesting idea he's pushing. He met with commissioners to talk about the importance of making visually impaired people able to follow along with televised programming. In other words, they want to have a short audio description of what's happening on a television screen for people who can't see.
I guess you could do that, even just somebody describing the action.
Yeah,
that's going
like what's
on, huh?
happening
for
people who can't see it. So they want to have the TV, access to TV, but then they wanted the service provided, the FCC overseas so they can watch what happened or hear what happened.
All right, good for Stevie Wonder. We'll come back with Dan Stone from National Geographic.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Hey, what do you say, fellow Americans, on a Wednesday, October 15? Good to see you today, and thank you for joining us. Here we are, the Bill Press Show. We are here in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, keeping our eye on what's going on here in Washington, around the country, and around the globe, bringing you up to date and giving you a chance to talk about it all. Here we are with you on Free Speech TV nationwide. Thanks for joining us. And worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Hello, worldwide. Thank you again for being there. On the Ebola front, bad news out of Dallas. We knew it could happen. We knew it certainly would happen. A second healthcare worker at the Dallas Presbyterian Hospital, also one who treated the West African patient, Thomas Eric Duncan. That healthcare worker, a second one now, has also contracted the disease. We don't know who it is. We don't know how he or she got the disease, but a second healthcare worker infected. Meanwhile, The word on Nurse Nina Pham is that her condition is described as good. In West Africa, not so good. Over 8,900 cases of Ebola reported, over 4,400 dead so far, and the World Health Organization predicts that we could be seeing 10,000 cases a month by December. On the ISIS front, President Obama meeting with military commanders from around the world yesterday out at Andrews Air Force Base to review our strategy against ISIS. Are the airstrikes working? Doesn't really look like that. ISIS is close to taking Kobani. They've reached within 15 miles of Baghdad, and one of their suicide bombers was able to successfully penetrate Baghdad yesterday, blow himself up, and kill 24 people. Lots to talk about today. Sorry, we'll get it straight. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS, and it's good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show. Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
We were told it could happen, and it has. A second healthcare worker in Dallas now has come down with the Ebola virus. The healthcare worker who also treated the patient from West Africa who died last week. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bill Press Show this Wednesday, October 15. Here we are. So good to see you today. Thank you for joining us and being part of the program as we come to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. All across this great land of ours, coast to coast, northeast, southwest, we are here with you on your local Progressive Talk radio station, here with you on Free Speech TV, and good to see you this Wednesday. Join the conversation anytime. We'd love to hear from you at 866-55-PRESS. We'd like to get your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Hail, hail, the gang's all here. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, good morning.
All right.
Happy
everybody.
Wednesday.
Woohoo.
I know. Made it through middle of the week to Alicia Cruz, who is there to take your calls again at 866-55-PRESS. We're looking at you, and you're looking at us on Free Speech or on our video stream, TawkrTV. Thanks to Cyprian Bolding, our videographer. And he is here so often we consider him a member of the team. He's with our annex, called the National Geographic. Nat Geo. Daniel Stone, worldwide reporter, writer, whatever. Hello, Dan.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Everything good? What's your latest wild trip? You're always going off on
We're
these.
looking at going next month to Patagonia, a place.
Oh, yeah.
A place on the planet very rarely touched or seen, and one of the wildest, most extreme climates. So we're headed down there, hopefully toward the end of November.
Well, your job really sucks, man.
Yeah.
Right. Doug Tompkins is an American who lives in Patagonia and owns more land, I think, than anybody on the planet.
Wow.
He has bought up hundreds of thousands of acres in Patagonia and is turning it all over to the government of Patagonia, provided they make it a national park.
There's a history of people with big amounts of money doing that in that part of the world specifically, which we'll be looking at.
So you should look him up.
Yeah. If I tell him I know you, how far will it get me?
You might be able to put your sleeping bag down under a tree. I don't know. I don't know him. I know his former wife, but anyhow, I admire him very much. So, very often on maybe once a week, I get to do the Al Sharpton Show on MSNBC. He has been very successful on the program. Nobody thought it would last, but it's over 3 years now he's been there. And he does have a funny kind of way of repeating things that are heard in video clips on the show, which I've noticed and laughed about before. But who's the site that did this?
Free Beacon.
Free Beacon. They have a way of doing this and making people embarrassing people. They did a montage of Al Sharpton's tendency to repeat what he has just heard, or audio clips he has just played on the show. For example,
liberty under assault.
Liberty is under assault.
The Democrats are feeling the heat.
Democrats are feeling the heat.
I didn't expect that was going to be my lifetime's work.
He didn't expect it to be his lifetime's work.
I think that will be the demise of our republic.
The demise of our republic?
I'm not for giving ducks and deer weapons to shoot back at me.
Giving ducks and deer weapons to shoot back at you. What does that even mean?
That's what you gotta say. Even Al Sharpton would have to laugh at that.
That's really good.
Yeah.
And by the way, it goes on for like 2 minutes.
Oh, is that right?
We don't have time to play all of them.
And he's done that when I've been on the set with him, but it is kind of funny.
That's how he talks, right? That's
no, exactly, right.
Hey, Al, it's nice to be with you. It's nice to be with you? Yeah, we have a lot of stuff to talk about. We have a lot of stuff to talk about? How's it going, Al? How's it going, Al?
That way you're sure, though, you hear every word, right?
Yeah.
Because you hear it twice. All right. 11 minutes after the hour. Now, a little bit later, Molly O'Toole will be joining us from Defense One to talk about whether or not the ISIS strategy is really working. Randi Weingarten, head of the American Federation of Teachers, one of our most dynamic labor leaders in the country, here in studio with us at the top of the next hour. And then one of the leaders of National Nurses United, they've been raising hell about the lack of training they're getting for Ebola, will be in studio with us as well. So, Daniel, you are always on to some very interesting topics, but I couldn't believe you are now the new champion of the avocado. And the headline in your latest article, you're eating too many avocados?
That's true.
How is that possible? What, because they're so fattening, or what's the word?
No. It's pure volume. It's pure numbers. American appetites of avocados, probably as a result of the three of us and many other people, have tripled in the past about 15 years. Avocados are everywhere. Avocados are everywhere. A lot of them used to come from California, but now to fill that extra demand, most of them come from Mexico and from Chile.
Whoa. So you got avocados year-round now.
Year-round. And right around now, around fall, when the California growing season stops, Mexico really kicks in and Chile kicks into high gear. So we get avocados in your supermarket year-round. They're expensive, but considering how much time, money, and effort and water goes into growing these things, about 1 million gallons of water it takes for 1 acre of avocado trees.
What?
Holy cow.
A lot of water, which is comparable for oranges and lemons. But
I was just going to ask you about tomatoes are basically water, right? We were talking earlier about pumpkins. I mean, vegetables are water, right? I mean,
yes, and the catch is that most places that vegetables are grown, there's enough water, right? We've heard about California over the past few months, but now Chile is dealing with the same water issues, and it's finding that there's just simply not enough water to go around. So with very little regulation, what you're seeing is farmers drilling wells deeper and deeper. They're trying to buy up more prime land, and they're doing something they've never done before, which is plant avocados on hillsides to get that glacier runoff and essentially rob the people downstream, some of these communities, of water that they might normally get. Wow. So what they're trying to do is pretty much mortgage the future to pay for the present and keep producing avocados because wealthy Americans around here enjoy the fruit so much.
Okay, but I guess the skeptic in me says, what's the big deal? I mean, isn't this sort of the story of agriculture? I mean, there was a time when you only got tomatoes in season. Now you get tomatoes, go to the Eastern market here, you get tomatoes year-round. And they're not coming from the Eastern Shore,
not too far.
Right? During the summer, they're coming from the Eastern Shore, but the rest of the year, they're coming, I don't know, from where? Italy.
And it works.
San Marzano tomatoes.
What makes avocados different and very unique is that there are only a few places on the planet where you could grow them. They need this cool, temperate, but wet climate right near the coast. That's why you have California, Mexico, and Chile right along the Pacific there. Not many other places around the world can grow the Hass avocado, which is so as these communities and as these countries can't produce as many, what you're going to see is demand outstripping supply and much more expensive avocados. So
are they good for you?
Yeah, they're considered a superfood now. So they're
What's that mean?
On par with blueberries, almonds, walnuts, acai, all the big...
But healthy?
Healthy, very healthy. They're high in fat, but it's considered a very good
See,
kind
I
of fat.
used to hate avocados, but then someone told me they were high in fat, and I figured, well, hell, they have to be good. So I started eating more avocados.
I've never liked avocados, but I could not live without guacamole. And they're practically the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. I was going to say, so we're talking in salads and guacamole.
Well, think about anytime you go get a sandwich
or a sandwich, right?
There's
That's
now this whole thing of the avocado toast, right? You're seeing this on all kinds of restaurant menus now. It's just toast with like half of an avocado just sort of crushed onto a piece of toast and then dressed, whatever. It's like a thing now. But I've seen more and more of that. So I mean, avocados, you're right. I mean, I see more and more of them like on menus as an ingredient.
And are these a relatively new thing? I mean, were these developed at the University of Davis? The avocados?
No, avocados actually are an evolutionary anomaly. They should not exist. These things have been around for millions of years, and the reason why
they look like it, man. They look like dinosaur eggs.
So most fruits have evolved very small seeds so they could be eaten by birds, and then pooped out somewhere else on the planet to keep growing.
Mm-hmm.
Avocados have huge seeds, right?
Yeah, they're great big. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and so they used to be eaten by these big elephant-like creatures that walked the earth that no longer exist. And avocados somehow found a way to stay on and to propel themselves forward until humans arrived, realized that they loved avocados, and led to this abundant future for the
But
fruit.
I don't know many humans who poop avocado seeds.
No, nor birds, nor any animals. Yeah,
nor birds. But so, how do they reproduce?
Like I said, the seeds still propagate. It's just that the birds don't take them. So, like I said, most
big ass bird.
Yeah, most fruits have evolved a way that they could be much more compatible with today's birds.
Never thought about that. But in California, right? Mm-hmm. The big thing in California was you take an avocado and then you take the seed and you put it in a glass of water and then you have an avocado plant.
Oh, I've done that, yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you how many of those we've had growing on the windowsill in the kitchen in California.
And how many avocados have you yielded?
None.
No,
you never go to all the way to plant them and whatever. Did you?
I've done the glass thing. I've never owned enough land to actually plant an avocado grove.
You can't do that, in a DC.
My bathtub is only so big.
Yeah,
so.
right. Yeah.
So people can find your more about the avocado where at nationalgeographic.com?
Yes, sir.
nationalgeographic.com. The other article that really interested me was before we get to the GOB, Nat GOB, which you always bring with us. Problems with Hajj, this pilgrimage that all Muslims have to make at least once in a lifetime,
right?
And to Mecca.
To Mecca. It happens in early October, so we actually just passed it. It just ended last week. Muslims are required once in their lives, if they're able, to make it to Mecca to do this religious pilgrimage and walk these rituals around the city. It's a very small town, very small city.
Yeah. And millions of people show up.
It's an understatement to say this is Mecca's Super Bowl. It's the biggest thing that happens all year, by far. But what's interesting is that, this has been around for centuries, people visiting Mecca for this pilgrimage. But in the past maybe 30 years, the numbers have ballooned. And that's because you're seeing developing countries around the Middle East, parts of Asia, parts of Africa, and Muslims in those countries, they're having more money, right? And so they're now finding they can go to Hajj for the first time. And the numbers are skyrocketing every year. It used to be just a few 100,000, and now about 3 to 4 million people do Hajj.
Whoa.
Like I said, small town, not much infrastructure in this town to accommodate. So it's led to this housing boom, this development boom, and the development of this ancient city that some people say is really diluting the experience of this simple pilgrimage that you're supposed to do with your equal man.
So it doesn't have the same impact and same allure?
I've never done it, but there are critiques of people who go and do Hajj, and they have fancy hotels they could stay in now and big shopping malls. And it seemed a little bit like Dubai, where they're trying to cash in on all these newly wealthy people in developing countries.
Can't they just webcast it or something, right? Like they can just do a webcast of the Hajj and you can just do it from your couch. You'd think that now, it's 2014. You can do that now.
But the real fun about having Daniel Stone in the studio is he always comes with, it's a National Geographic after all, with his Geography B. Once again, I'm going to embarrass Peter Ogburn with my answers. We'll find out when we come back with Daniel Stone. 866-55-PRESS if you want to join in.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use, which is a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 24 minutes after the hour. We'll talk ISIS in the next half hour. Right now, Daniel Stone from National Geographic. Dan, you're on.
So every year we have a geography bee at Geographic where some of the brightest students, and some of these kids are like 11, 12, 13 years old. They come, they are geography whiz kids.
Okay.
And these questions...
What do they know?
They sound like jerks.
I'll remind the people listening at home. Last time I came in, Bill, you owned it. I mean, I think you got 100%.
He did.
Before that, I think you really nailed it, Peter, the time before that. But anyway,
right.
Let's go through a few questions. See how many you guys can get.
Okay.
We'll start with something easy. Pashto and Dari are major languages in a landlocked Asian country that borders Pakistan. Name this country.
No, you have to give us choices.
No choices? I was going to say Becky, Stan. That's my final answer.
Borders Pakistan?
Dari and Pashto are the official languages, major languages.
Syria.
It is Afghanistan.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Dude, if we're not going to get a multiple choice, I am sunk.
Absolutely.
How about this? Caribbean Hindustani, a dialect of Hindi, is commonly spoken in this island country off of Venezuela. Name this country.
Oh, get out of here.
What are you talking about? How do kids have to know this? Holy crap.
Okay, you know what? Why
a
don't
country
we go
off Venezuela? No, an island off Venezuela?
where they speak a dialect of Hindi.
Sri Lanka.
Well, not off Venezuela.
I don't know.
The answer is, do you want to guess?
Mm-mm.
Trinidad and Tobago.
Ow.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh.
I always bring in super easy questions.
I was almost going to say that.
Okay.
That's not
go with
super
this one.
By the way, you should check your gauge on easy.
I'm thinking Venezuela. Is that where Trinidad is? All right. Okay.
Name this landlocked country that borders Botswana and South Africa.
Oh, get out of here. I have to tell you, with Africa, it is the dark continent for me. Meaning, you get me away from Egypt or Morocco, I don't know any of the countries.
Okay.
Now I know.
He's just going to skip it.
Now I know Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone for different reasons. All right. What's the name of the country?
Okay. Which one? Trinidad and Tobago.
No, that's the African one.
The Botswana. Are you going to...
You just ask us a question about...
Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Bill?
Okay. To visit writer Ernest Hemingway's home near Havana and to hike to the top of El Yunque, you would travel to what country?
Well, yeah, Cuba.
I feel like it's a trick question, but I want to say Cuba.
Right.
Like I'm scared to even say anything.
But I mean, yeah, when you say Havana, I mean that sort of gives it away because he also had a house in Key West.
Yeah,
too.
Right. Okay, we're running out of time. I'll go with this one.
No, fine.
We mentioned this place earlier in this segment. I'll give you that hint. In 1971, the British government ended its protectorate of the Trucial states, and these states form what present-day country on the Persian Gulf?
Syria.
No.
Oh, no, Afghanistan. No.
No.
Wait a minute. Okay, all right, then.
The Trucial states.
I don't even know what Trucial states...
It's a country with a series of states or territories that are separated. They are united, in fact.
Cyprian.
I'll give you a hint. The first word is united. UAE. United Arab Emirates.
All right. Okay.
Should we go with one or a few more?
I hate you.
It's embarrassing.
I hate you.
You felt so good about this.
I'm going to keep it. Remind you that 11-year-old sometimes answers.
Oh, shut up!
It doesn't help.
Shut up. One more, quick.
Brisbane and Perth are port cities on which continent?
Oh, yes,
This
Australia.
Australia.
Oh, God.
But again, I feel like I'm walking into a trick question.
End on a high note.
We end on a high note.
Yeah,
exactly.
we got the last one right. That's all that matters.
Daniel Stone, NationalGeographic.com. Go home and eat an avocado. And come back and see us soon.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go at 33 minutes after the hour. Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C., brought to you today by the American Federation of Government Employees, the good men and women of the AFGE under President J. David Cox. Proud to work for America every day, you bet. And you find out more about their good work at their website, afge.org. So yesterday, the focus, when they weren't talking about Ebola at the White House, they were talking about ISIS. Those two issues have really been dominating the president's time and energy lately. And ISIS yesterday on two fronts. First, at the White House briefing with Josh Earnest yesterday, Josh insisted that the strategy with the coalition forces against ISIS is working, and people are confident that there's no need to revise it, that we are on target and showing success. And the president then yesterday also, he met with a group of military leaders from 21 different countries around the globe who are part of our ISIS coalition, meeting with them at Andrews Air Force Base, and first of all telling them again, here is what our goal is.
We are united in our goal to degrade and ultimately destroy ISIL so that it's no longer a threat to Iraq, to the region, or the international community.
And the president's saying we got to be, we're in for the long haul. It's going to take a long time.
This is going to be a long-term campaign. There are not quick fixes involved. We're still at the early stages. As with any military effort, there will be days of progress, and there are going to be periods of setback.
But is it really working? Let's take a look at it with Molly O'Toole, who is a reporter for Defense One, joining us in studio again today. Hello, Molly. Nice to have you back.
Thanks.
So there were a lot of questions yesterday at the briefing. Okay, if this strategy is really working, why is ISIS almost ready to, very close to taking Kobani? Why are ISIS forces now 15 miles from Baghdad? And why did the Iraqi, if we can count on them, why did the Iraqi military cut and run again last week from a military base just outside of Baghdad? So where's the evidence that this strategy is really working? What's going on?
Right. I mean, those are all good questions, and I wish I had good answers, because I'm asking the same ones myself, frankly. I do think that...
do you know where Trinidad and Tobago are?
You could have really helped us out on that.
You could have helped us out on that last segment.
I was glad I was not here for the geography segment, but some of these questions aren't any easier.
You're looking at the geography at a different part of the world.
Different part of the world.
But seriously, there are troubling signs that ISIS is still pretty strong.
Right. I mean, they made key gains in Anbar province recently, and they're showing signs of kind of increasing levels of violence and more brazen attacks in Baghdad as well.
Yesterday,
they're claiming credit for them.
ISIS suicide bomber penetrates the security in Baghdad, blows up 24 people.
Right, including a former interior minister, and that's one of the key positions in the new cabinet that they have yet to fill. And he was a prominent leader in one of the militias that's been battling the Islamic State. So I think that's a troubling sign. I think the military, leaders at the Pentagon have been, they've expressed degrees of confidence when it comes to the Islamic State, to the ISF, and whether they can defend Baghdad. I think they're certainly troubled with more evidence that Iraqi security forces abandoned their posts in the last couple of weeks. They're troubled about the distance from Baghdad, although we should keep in mind, they've been at a relatively close distance from Baghdad for some time. This is troubling, certainly, but that is the case. I think it's difficult. I think it's difficult for military leaders in particular. It's hard to sell the American public on a long-term campaign. You look at the siege of Kobani, for example. We had the most airstrikes in one single 24-day period. I think it was overnight on Monday. There were 21 strikes. I think 20 of them were at Kobani. That is a sustained level of intensity. So I think it's difficult for them to kind of to express to people that this is going to be a long-term campaign when people are asking these questions.
Well, there are a couple of disconnects, it seems to me, when it comes to boots on the ground. One of them being, again, trusting the Iraqi military. The whole thing is we train them, we equip them, and then they defend their own country so we don't have to do it. But we saw the first time they met up with the Islamic State forces or ISIS forces, the Iraqi military threw down their weapons and ran. If we thought there was any change, last week there was this base, there's some 400 Iraqi soldiers somewhere pretty close to outside of Baghdad at any rate, and the ISIS forces went after them, and what did they do? They did the same thing. Right? They retreated. They were in retreat, we were told. So Where's this confidence, right, that we can count on the Iraqi military?
Right. And well,
What's it based on?
I mean, there are tactical assessments that go on with the Pentagon. There obviously we had an extensive program of training and equipping the Iraqi security forces.
Yeah, for the last 10 years.
Right. So I think that's what the confidence was based on. Whether or not that's been misplaced is a separate question. I mean, the government, at least the Obama administration, has consistently emphasized this is part of a comprehensive strategy, quote unquote, and that to some extent Iraqi security forces and the entire thing, the entire plan, is not going to work until you have a stable government that is inclusive, that itself inspires confidence in Iraq. And that's a much slower process. But the political process is not going to be on pace with the military process.
Supposedly we have that now, but as you're kind of alluding to, it's a very new government. They're not fully formed yet. It's probably like a month old. So you can't say we really have the stable government united government we've been looking for.
Right. But the Iraqi security forces don't really have that luxury. I mean, the fight continues. The Islamic State is pushing on.
Well, that's the second disconnect, it seems to me, which in terms talk about timing. So we're going to count on the Iraqi military. Can we? That's a big question mark for me. We're also going to count on the moderate Syrian opposition, now trained and now armed, okay? We haven't even started recruiting whoever these people we're going to be training are yet. We were told that yesterday at the briefing. So we have to find out who, vet them somehow, go through them, recruit them, get them lined up, and then take them to Saudi Arabia and train them and bring them back. That's going to... the training will take 6 months. Once we get started, we're not even close to starting. So, meanwhile, we have airstrikes going on. Right.
Right. I mean, it's
going to be 6, 8, 9 months at the earliest before those Syrian ground forces are actually back and on the ground.
It seems difficult to jive the timelines here, and obviously the Islamic State is not on our timeline. But the Pentagon does.
They're not going to wait till our ground forces. Okay, now you guys ready to go?
We're ready to go.
All right,
we're ready to go. Yeah. They design a number of contingency plans, but yes, it's difficult to see how the timelines are going to jive. I mean, Chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff Dempsey, Hagel, and others have said. By their best estimates, they believe that they can get, I think it is 5,000 trained, but that's in a year.
Yeah.
We can see, and we were kind of reflecting on this before the segment. I mean, we've been talking about the Islamic State for three months now, I think, just about, and this is what has managed to happen in 3 months' time. Now, the Pentagon has said that the airstrikes have to some extent force them to change their tactics. We've seen some success in certain areas. I mean, Kobani has held at least.
Kurdish forces got the Mosul Dam back, right? I mean, that's what Josh Earnest keeps talking about, the Mosul Dam, the Mosul Dam.
You got to focus on those tangible successes when there are a lot of intangibles.
But every time he was asked, what is the concrete evidence that this strategy is working, the only thing he could point to was the Mosul Dam.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a difficult situation. I mean, it's no small feat to wrangle a coalition of really disparate allies, and ally can be used in a loose way as well. And this, there's a common enemy in the Islamic State. I mean, that's no small feat diplomatically. And the fact that a number of countries have not only committed military force, but have actually participated with the United States in airstrikes. That's certainly no small feat, but we keep coming back to, again, airstrikes alone can't do the job. I think Kobani is a perfect example of that. And that's a difficult...
That's right.
Yeah. Admiral Kirby at the Pentagon, a few days ago, he kind of seems to have tempered those common sense, has said, look, there are going to be moments like Kobani. Not every, you don't want to downplay the importance of, people's lives, obviously, but, there are going to be strategic setbacks. There are going to be towns that fall in a long-term campaign. You have certain goals, and there are going to be those things that happen along the way. But I think just from a messaging standpoint, especially after Obama, so to speak, kind of laid out those red lines when it comes to humanitarian interest as well. It's difficult for people to see a town like Kobani, to think that we can help, and to let a town like that fall as part of some long-term strategy. That's a difficult thing to sell, but for Pentagon officials, I think that's also a difficult thing to have to be responsible for as well.
So we're into it. We're into the airstrikes. The campaign against ISIS is underway. Is it working? Any signs of that so far? And what is your confidence that it's working? 866-55-PRESS is the toll-free number. We're here with Molly O'Toole from Defense One, political reporter. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight. It's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune into Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour, breaking news. CNN breaking the news that Ann Romney says she will not run for president in 2016.
I mean...
Seriously, had anybody...
Anyone with the name Romney, they just want to put him out there.
I guess so.
You got all those other...
Now, we still don't know about Mitt.
You know, he's got all those kids. You know, they might be running.
Yeah. Six
Lots
sons.
to choose from, yeah.
Track and Scooter, whatever the names are.
We're here with Molly O'Toole from Defense One. Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, at the top of the next hour. All right, so just at this time, when we are training the Iraqi military and training the moderate Syrian opposition. I love that phrase. The New York Times comes out, lead story today. The CIA has just released a study of the CIA, a year old now, has just been leaked to the New York Times. CIA study says arming rebels seldom works. They went back 67 years from Angola to Nicaragua to Cuba, all these efforts that we've made to, here's the answer, we'll just arm the rebels and let them do their job. It's never worked. Why do we think it's going to work in Syria?
Well, the administration has at least emphasized that it's part of, a much bigger plan. It's just an element of this. But people are raising that question, and it's difficult to see.
It's pretty damning, right?
Right.
This is a study that Obama commissioned, asked for, and they came back and said, arming the rebels, we always think it's going to work. It hasn't worked, and yet we're doing it again.
Well, we can see this even in, for example, former Defense Secretary Leon Panetta's book, and he's been all over the scene lately talking about just the divisiveness within the administration. A couple years ago, when they were considering programs to train and equip the Syrian rebels, how you would vet moderate forces, and there was a lot of divide in the administration about it at that time, and there's a lot of reports that indicate there's still division about it now. Now, whether I think at this point they have little choice. It's an option they need to try and pursue. And they've also said that they're in a better position to do this kind of program now that they've pursued this kind of research. But if that's the conclusion,
this study is one of the main reasons why President Obama a year ago decided, or 3 years ago when the Civil War started, not to just hand out weapons to the Syrian opposition, because the CIA looked at it and said, may sound good, but it hasn't worked. Let's say a quick hello to Davis down in Radford, Virginia. Hello, Davis.
Hello. Say, I believe if you're going to do something right, do it yourself. We broke that country. We've got to go back in and fix it. It's a symptomatic thing of poverty. We have to fight poverty on a worldwide scale for a foundation just like that. We can't just go drop bombs and think that they're going to clean up the mess. We made the mess. We've got to go back in and clean it up.
Well, thanks, Davis, for the comment. I hear that a lot. We had a caller earlier this morning who said, we can't depend on other people to fight our fight for us. I mean, we've made this our fight, I guess. That what they're saying is it's going to end up being American troops on the ground, American boots on the ground. Can't avoid it. Do you agree?
I don't have a fully committed answer to that question. I mean, we were talking about this a little earlier. I mean, if the Iraqi security forces continue to stand down, to kind of abandon the fight, if it's going to take at least a year's time to train and equip moderate Syrian rebels, and even if they were to have 5,000 moderate Syrian rebels, I mean, it's not a given that would be a decisive impact on the Islamic State. If, at least thus far, coalition partners don't indicate that they're willing to put boots on the ground, and airstrikes, military officials themselves have said, are not sufficient, it is difficult to see, especially now that we are in the fight. They've insisted it's not our fight to fight, but we're there.
We're there.
It's difficult to see how at least a certain number, I believe it's difficult to see how at least a certain number of American boots would not be necessary. And that's something that military officials are increasingly discussing, floating out there. And we're not talking about, Iraq invasion, 3.0.
Yeah.
But at least putting ground forces in combat forward positions, even to the extent of advising Iraqi security forces, calling in airstrikes, that sort of thing. I believe it's difficult to see how that's not going to be happening.
I mean, it looks to me that that's where we're going, that it's almost inevitable, and that's something I don't think the American people really have a stomach for, and we're just going to have to leave it right there because up against the clock. But Molly O'Toole, it is a complicated part of the world for sure. And the president certainly right yesterday when he said it's not going to be quick and it's not going to be easy. Thanks so much for coming in again today.
Of course, thank you.
You can follow Molly's good work at defense1, defense1.com. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, you think the first 2 hours are good? Well, they are, but we're just getting started. Hour number 3 is going to be rock and roll. You won't want to miss it. So if you're watching on Free Speech TV, jump over to our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TawkrTV. She is one of the most articulate, most energetic, most dynamic labor leaders in the country. Randi Weingarten, head of the American Federation of Teachers, will be here in studio with us. And then we'll be joined by one of the leaders of National Nurses United to talk about how much training they're really getting in hospitals of America to fight the Ebola disease. Hour number 3 on TawkrTV coming up.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves, would you like a bag? What do people really hate? Yep. Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
President Obama, a mix of policy and politics today. Late this morning, he will be doing a video conference with leaders of Britain, France, Germany, and Italy to talk about response to Ebola. And then he heads off on the campaign trail, first going up to New Jersey for a fundraiser for the Senate Campaign Committee. From there, he goes up to Bridgeport, Connecticut, where he'll be campaigning with Governor Dan Malloy, who is up for re-election, leaving Connecticut, heading back to the White House, back at the White House at 11 o'clock this evening. And we have our daily briefing with Josh Earnest at the White House at 12:30 today, where there will be sure and be lots more questions about Ebola now that we have a second case in Dallas. We're back with Randi Weingarten, President, American Federation of Teachers.
This is the Bill Press Show.
West here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight, it's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
We were told it could happen, and it has happened. A second case of Ebola in Dallas. Another healthcare worker, another nurse who treated the patient from West Africa who had Ebola and died of Ebola last week. Don't know the name yet. Don't know how this person contracted the disease, but two healthcare workers now in Dallas. Hello, everybody. It is Wednesday, October 15. So good to see you today. It's the Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and bringing you the news of the day, and not just in Dallas, but here from Washington, around the country, and around the globe. We'll tell you what's going on, and you tell us what it all means to you, what you think about it, at 866-55-PRESS. That's our toll-free number. The entire team here this morning, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Happy Wednesday.
Good
Yes,
morning.
Indeed. Midway through the week, Alicia Cruz is standing by to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And on that worldwide video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKRTV, Cyprian Bolding in charge of the cameras and the lights and keeping us looking good. And Peter, you will remember earlier today, I said that two of my favorite people in the whole planet I have a particular affection for nurses and teachers.
True.
This hour, I'm so pleased because we have teachers and nurses here, starting with the president of the American Federation of Teachers, Randi Weingarten. Randi, so good to see you.
And I love the fact, first off, Bill, it's so great to see you. And I love the fact that we have now become our union, the second largest nurse union, and second largest teacher union. And in fact, later on this week, we're going to, our folks and all across the country have been working on protocols for what to do to ensure that Ebola doesn't become a health crisis in the United States, and we're going to put them out later on this week.
Yeah, great. I didn't realize until this morning that you represent not just teachers but nurses, and then a little bit later, Kelly Fields from the National Nurses United will be joining us as well. But let's start talking education, because I've been surprised to see that we hear talk about ISIS and all that kind of stuff, but in United States Senate races around the country, in these midterm elections, when you look at state by state, education has become a real big issue in these Senate races. The New York Times this morning about Pennsylvania,
Exactly. Philadelphia.
teachers. So Pennsylvania is one of the
Right.
one of the states where education's the main issue, maybe perhaps.
So what's happening is in some of the Senate races, education has become a big issue, like in the North Carolina Senate race, in the New Hampshire Senate race, in the Michigan and Minnesota Senate races. But where you really see it is in the gubernatorial races, like in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Florida, even Wisconsin, Kansas. And what's happened is that these governors who were elected in 2010 on the, in the height of the recession, on an President Obama anti-spending crusade. What's happened is they have cut, and more cuts of education, public education in their states, while at the same time also cutting corporate taxes. So they've been clearly preferring the wealthy over kids, as kids have gotten poorer and poorer, as the middle class has diminished more. And what's happening in these states is people are saying, wait a second, we want our kids to have a future. And so these folks have been, testing, cutting. And so in Pennsylvania, in Kansas, where people are saying, stop, we want our kids to have a future. And you can't keep on saying there's a crisis in schools that you created. And that's the story in Philadelphia, because Corbett, the current governor, owns the school system, controls the school system, has cut that school system to the bone. And now his controlled SRC, 3 weeks, meaning the School Reform Commission, 3 weeks before the election, does an ambush of the teachers trying to pit the interests and needs of students against the needs of teachers. And frankly, what you see in that article and what you see the minute you go to Philly is nobody is buying it. Everybody knows the real issue has been that the governor has cut this budget, and to say that they should impose a contract and impose further costs on teachers who already have had their, gone without pay raises, paid money out of their pockets, on and on, to help kids, basically are the glue in kids' lives. Sorry, I get so angry when I say that I'm talking about it. It's just really, it is a moral outrage what Governor Corbett has done. And what you see is that it's not working.
And there's a backlash, and people recognize it, and they really realize these schools are important, and they've just cut too much, right? And that's also, I think you mentioned Kansas, right, where Sam Brownback, Mr. Conservative, we're just going to cut, and he cut to the point where even, from what I've heard out there, some Republicans are saying, hey, you've cut the schools too much.
Well, what's happened in Kansas is they cut the schools too much. They have a court opinion saying that it's too much. And they even have the Wall Street folks and the bond market saying your reckless austerity plans have actually hurt the state's credit rating.
Whoa.
In Pennsylvania, what's happened is that the suburbs were able to deal with the cuts by raising property taxes. So that's part of the reason.
In their own area.
In their own area. So in Philadelphia, you don't have that wherewithal. That's part of the problem in terms of school equity. And frankly, no other country does this. No other country gives kids who have the least. And our property tax system does that in terms of education, so that the kids in Philly and in Pittsburgh have gotten a double whammy. They had disproportionate cuts in terms of state aid, and now and they have disproportionate needs. And so we keep saying, both in terms of college and K-12, education is really important. And then we don't give kids music, art. We don't prepare kids for the Common Core, which we say is really important. And instead, all we do is test them.
Right. Among the other states.
That's why it's such a hot issue now, because people are saying, what is this disconnect?
No, it's really come up to the surface. Another, you mentioned just briefly, but I see one of the other states that you've made a priority, Wisconsin, two others, Wisconsin and Florida.
Absolutely, and Michigan.
And Michigan, that's right.
And there's other states that we've made, look, we're spending more than we've ever spent before, and this is a midterm election, because this, what we've seen is that these governors, like in Wisconsin, Michigan, Kansas, Florida, Pennsylvania, did they run saying that they were going to cut public education to the core?
Of course, yeah. Of course
did they run saying that they were going to eliminate the voice of, teachers and other workers? No, they didn't run at all like that. They basically pretended they were something that they weren't. And now what's happened is that the people that we say we really care about, children and their futures have really taken on the chin. And so part of the spending, we can't ever compete with the Koch brothers and with, those who corporations that outspend us 15 to 1. But we are trying to stop these guys from hiding from the record.
You know what I find so interesting is that we tend to, here in Washington particularly, to get all caught up in, not that they're not important, they are important, in House races and in Senate races. But the governor's races really, really are important, and they really control a lot.
Right.
Reapportionment, that's another whole issue, and education.
Well, they control issues of quality of life on a day-to-day basis for kids, for families, for communities. And that's why we are so focused on them, because that is where the rubber meets the road. That's where a community, where you live is basically where you either thrive or not. And people, whether they're parents currently of kids in schools, whether they're grandparents, or whether they're thinking about long-term the economic viability of our country, public education matters. I mean, in Wisconsin, I was there last week. It is remarkable that that higher education costs are so daunting, so affect many people in Wisconsin that are no longer in college, that are still paying their student loans. And there was a bill in the Wisconsin legislature to, just like the bill that Elizabeth Warren and Senator Mark Bekich had pushed, to just renegotiate your loans.
Right.
Because if banks are paying, basically pay 0.5 in terms of interest, why are students paying 7%? Why can't there be something closer to what the banks pay? And so you have Walker, who will do all sorts of things for corporations, but not for students or adults that are being crippled by student loans. And it's a big issue that Mary Burke is pushing. And so we had a town hall on this.
Yeah. I mean, just the idea that you can renegotiate your home mortgage, which we have done. A lot of people do take advantage of it. Rates go down. Get a new loan. Might have to pay a little fee, but you come out way, way, way ahead.
Right.
And students can't do that for student loans. It's just unbelievable.
So that's so these are the issues. How do you get a living wage? How do you make sure that people have the skills and knowledge they need to get good jobs in the economy? How do you create good jobs? How do you create more infrastructure? How do you have good schooling? That's the issues, at least, that we are seeing are what is animating the public, and in this election. And the real issue is, how do you make sure people know not only what the stakes are, but who is on workers, families, and communities' side? Right.
So there is, despite the gloom, there's an opportunity here, isn't there, too, to let people for people to become aware again of how important schools are and how important it is that they have the support that they need, and to elect people who will make that a priority. Right.
And
I mean, so we could come out of this election, hopefully, with some people more committed to our public school system and our teachers.
Well, you see that in poll after poll after poll, that people are committed to public education. They want teachers to have more flexibility. This is my fear, and that's, this is my big pitch to people. Go vote. Whoever you're voting for, go vote. That is what makes this democracy. And what I'm concerned about is that money has totally polluted the electoral process. There's too much money in the electoral process. There's too much polarization. There's too many.
So a lot of people feel their vote doesn't matter.
Exactly, and there's too many negative ads, and that demoralizes people, and they just say, why even bother? So please, go vote. It's so important. That is what makes the United States the democracy it is. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is just make sure that people know whose side, who's on workers, kids, families, and community side.
Randi Weingarten, she's certainly on your side, and she's here with us in studio. Be glad to take your questions or your comments at 866-55-PRESS. I want to ask you about preschool when we come back, too.
Right.
And how that's doing in state after state. Here she is, again, head of the American Federation of Teachers. Join the conversation. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids
you.
how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
It is the Bill Press Show. We are coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio right here on Capitol Hill. And we are brought to you today in part by the American Federation of Teachers and their dynamic president, Randi Weingarten, who is here in studio with us. The good men and women, teachers of America and nurses of America, members of the AFT, making a difference every day. You bet. You can find out more about their good work at their website, aft.org, or just ask Randi. Here she is. So I have 2 little grandchildren in preschool, and I know how important it is. I mean, I can't imagine going to first grade, let alone anywhere else, right, without having that foundation, right? How many American kids have that, and what's being done about it?
So not enough, and in fact, because of the austerity budgets of the last few years, we actually have fewer kids in pre-K than we had beforehand. Now,
because
this year may have
sequester cuts.
Well, because of the sequester cuts on the national level, but also you have locally in state after state or state. I mean, there's a number. This is the magnitude of it. New York Times a couple of weeks ago basically said we are about 380,000 fewer educators than we were and need to have since the Great Depression.
Wow.
Or since the Great Recession. The number, so it was 250,000, but they, in whatever regression analysis they did, they found that there was about 380,000. So think about that magnitude.
The last 6 years, the teacher corps, or that body of people we need, right, for teaching, shrank.
Right,
and 380,000.
It shrank about 250,000. It shrank in actuality about 250,000, and we have more kids.
Oh, got it.
And so so what you're seeing is things like art and music go bye-bye. There's a fixation on the transition to the Common Core, so there's much more data and much more kind of swirling around that, but things like science and social studies then go bye-bye. Physical education goes bye-bye. But so that's what starts telling you this anomaly about pre-K, because here's a situation where, with the exception of maybe the Cato Institute, everyone believes, and the research confirms, that pre-K is important. You think about it, just, without being a brain scientist, kids' minds are racing. They're supple when they're 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. And so if you help kids learn how to build relationships, how to play, how to have a creativity and a passion and innovation and kind of figure out how to mold that, how to read kids' words so that they understand words and just, so not that taking bubble tests, but they start getting this kind of preparation for schooling, they're going to be a lot more prepared when their minds are most supple than, if you try to prepare them later on. And so that's what all the research says, that when you give kids pre-K, you are preparing them. When kids are read at home and then they have an awareness of words, you're preparing them so they have a better start. In fact, some of the research basically says, for every $1 you invest in pre-K, you basically save $7 later on in a student's life in terms of all the good things that might happen and all the bad things that won't happen. So this is a situation where we know it works, we know it's important, but we don't get it done.
Yeah, and every kid in America should have that opportunity. Every family should have that opportunity.
Absolutely.
And that's just one of the many fights where the AFT is right out in front, fighting for all the rest of us. Randi Weingarten, thanks for all that you're doing. Good luck in all these important governor and Senate races this year.
Thanks for having us, Bill. And thanks for everything that you do. Really, thanks for telling truth to power.
And back at you, thanks for coming in the studio this morning. See you again soon.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Make it 33 minutes after the hour now, The Bill Press Show, here on your local progressive talk radio station, here with you worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. We were told that it could easily happen, and it has happened. Another case of Ebola in Dallas, another healthcare worker who treated the patient, Thomas Eric Duncan, who died of Ebola, came here from West Africa, died of Ebola last week. We do not know the name or how this person contracted the disease. At least I haven't seen that yet. But we also do know that the first case out there, the nurse Nina Pham, is reported to be in good condition. Thomas Frieden from the Center for Disease Control told us yesterday that there were as many as 48 people treated Mr. Duncan before he was admitted to the hospital, and 76, maybe some of the same, but 76 after he was admitted to the hospital. All of those people are under observation at the moment. The question is, do our hospitals prepared and our health professionals given adequate training to deal with this disease? Yesterday, Bonnie Castillo, who's leader, one of the representatives of the National Nurses United, said for nurses around the country, a very high percentage do not have adequate training.
85% of them have said that their hospitals have not provided any interactive education or training with regards to Ebola and specifically with regards to the personnel protective equipment.
And she mentioned they've been demanding more and yet not getting a lot of response.
Because there was uncertainty and confusion with regards to how to deal with this patient and no clear protocol in place that any employee was familiar with. There was greater risk of exposure to healthcare personnel as well as the public.
That's Bonnie Castillo from the National Nurses United. Kelly Fields is an emergency room nurse here in Washington, D.C., and also a member of the National Nurses United Union, and joins us in studio this morning. Hi, Kelly. It's nice to see you. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having
me.
me.
I hope you didn't have an overnight shift in the ER room last night.
No, I didn't.
Okay, good, because we wouldn't want you to come right from there into here and have to put up with that. But so you work in a hospital here in Washington, D.C. How prepared are you if somebody walks in and says, I think I might have Ebola, and they test positive for the symptoms?
Not prepared at all. We are not getting the training.
Yeesh.
They have provided us with what they call an Ebola cart. And that
Ebola
was just
what?
An Ebola cart.
What's that?
It's a cart with 4 or 5 drawers. They did put 1 pair of goggles in it. We have a box of gloves. We have masks with face shields now and some gowns. But nobody's given us any instruction on how to properly don this equipment or take it off without contaminating ourselves.
You say gowns. These are not hazmat suits?
Oh, no. They're initially, we were given just yellow paper gowns, and now they've given us the blue surgical type gowns, and I don't know how impervious to water they are, but that's what they're giving us now.
That doesn't sound...
No.
That doesn't inspire confidence.
No, it doesn't.
If I was in those shoes.
But how many hours have you spent learning how to put on this garb and take off this garb safely?
None. We haven't even had 5 minutes of instruction, and that's what we've been asking for. No instruction whatsoever.
Do you think this is true of other hospitals as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been hearing it from other nurses who work at other hospitals. We're just not getting the training. They act like this is an isolated incident specific to Dallas. It's not going to come to Washington, D.C., and we're not getting the training. They're treating it almost like it's a joke. And it's scary. It's very scary.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I mean, it's scary just hearing you talk about it. And I'm not on the front line. So, you're Providence Hospital, right?
Correct.
Relatively small hospital compared to some of the
small community hospital.
Small community hospital. But so community hospitals around the country just are not equipped to deal
Absolutely
with it.
not. No, we're not equipped.
So is the answer to have a one hospital maybe in each region or each community, which is sort of like Ebola center?
That would be ideal. But in the absence of that, every hospital, the personnel needs to be trained on how to properly protect themselves and to care for this patient safely. And we're just not getting the training.
I saw one story that some of the nurses who were treating in Texas were using like electrical tape to fill up gaps on their suits because they did not feel like they were protected well enough. So they improvised. And I don't blame them for doing something like that. I mean, I would have not been comfortable going in a gown.
Right.
No, thank you.
I've considered taking in a box of plastic trash bags to wrap myself in case we ever get a potential Ebola patient.
And then you look at the people, like when there was the guy who joked on the airplane that he had Ebola.
Right.
and they sit in a hazmat team that look like spacemen in the full body thing.
Yeah.
That's how they handle that, but then the people on the front lines, it's not good.
Yeah, it's sad but true.
That's sad.
So I'm just, I don't know how much training. I saw Dr. Fauci the other day from the head of the NIH, who said, telling Dr. John LaPook on CBS News, that adequate training would take like a couple of weeks.
I can believe that. Yeah, it takes a long time to put this gear on. It's going to take a long time to get it off safely, because it'd be very easy to contaminate yourself.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't been offered any of that training at all.
Do you believe that it can, we hear this all the time, we're reassured all the time it is not an airborne disease. You can't get it that way. Do you believe that?
No, actually I don't. I know the virus has the ability to mutate, and as it mutates, it could become an airborne disease. And I'm concerned about that also.
Mm-hmm. Boy, that doesn't give you much confidence. In terms of, so you're wearing all of this gear. There's still certain procedures that you have to perform on a patient where fluids are, I mean,
Yes.
you run into contact with fluids. So
Yes.
even with all that gear, there's still some potential exposure, isn't there?
Absolutely. Yeah, it would be very easy to be exposed.
I also saw that with Peter, like you, with one of these stories, that you, that the safe way was to take this gear off when you're disrobing. Take this gear off, and take the gloves off, so that you never touch the outside of the gloves or the outside of the gear. So, I mean, I've just been struck with that ever since. How do you take a glove off without touching the outside of the glove?
That's a good question. I haven't gotten the training for it. Yeah, very good question. And that's why
Can you imagine how you would have to do? I mean, it just seems almost impossible.
I have an idea, but without the practice, without the drills, without the training, I'm not going to know for sure.
So what are nurses doing about this? Raising hell?
Going to the media.
Yeah.
Going to the media, hoping that media exposure will move the administration of our hospitals to act. This is not a joke. The administration seems to be burying their head in the sand and pretending like this isn't happening, and it is.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll never be exposed. They're not on the front lines like we are.
Right. Doctors, same problem?
Absolutely. Yeah. The doctors at my hospital have not been trained either.
Whoa. So what can we do about this? You can hear it. You hear the voice from the nurses around the country saying, hey, wait a minute, we're on the front lines, and we're not getting the training. So before we take a break, so yesterday the CDC says, okay, now we're prepared. We wish we had done this in Dallas, but we didn't, but we're prepared now. As soon as any hospital in the country says, we've got somebody that we think might have the Ebola disease, they're going to send, from Atlanta, they're going to send a crack team in, they say, to work with the health professionals in that hospital. Does that give you any reassurance or confidence?
Yes and no, because how long is it going to take for them to get from Atlanta to Washington, D.C.? And in those hours prior to their arrival, we're on our own.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to be training and instructing us then? It'll be too late.
And once they get there, too, it seems to me, right, they're going to, it's going to take them time to get set up and to do the training.
Absolutely.
Which we say 2 weeks of training, you're not going to get that. Maybe you get, if you're lucky, an hour. Or 2 hours. Right.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, what's happening to this patient, too?
Exactly. How many people are going to be exposed? How many people are at risk before the CDC gets there?
We just had a comment on Twitter, by the way. We're on Twitter at BP Show. Robbie says, how can this lack of training be possible? I used to work at a nuclear facility, and decontamination training was absolutely mandatory. So I think part of the question here is whether it's Ebola or whether it's another horrifying, deadly disease, how did that? How did they not see this coming? How did they not see that that nurses are going to need this type of decontamination training? Again, if it's not for Ebola, with the threat of terrorism and bioterrorism and all this kind of stuff, you would think that they would have had that on their radar. How do they miss it?
I don't think they've missed it. I think they've chosen to ignore it. They're in denial that it could possibly happen in our area.
That's scary.
Kelly Fields with us. She is an ER nurse at Providence Hospital here in Washington, D.C. a member of National Nurses United, the largest nurses union in the country, talking about this appalling lack of training among nurses, leaving nurses very, very vulnerable and exposed to the Ebola virus around the country. Your questions, your comments, your experience. I know in the last couple of days we've heard from a lot of nurses out there, including some other emergency room nurses. Give us a call. Your colleague Kelly is here with you. 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour, talking nurses and exposure and training, or lack of, with Kelly Fields from the National Nurses United. NationalNursesUnited.org is their website to find out more about what they're asking for and what their experiences are. Just as we began our conversation, Kelly, they're having a news conference in Dallas about this second Ebola case. Here is Dr. Dan Vargas.
While I cannot discuss patient specifics, I can tell you this new patient was involved in the care of Mr. Duncan, the original patient whose passing we still mourn.
So she's a woman we know, lives alone, and was treating Dr. Duncan, probably another nurse, Kelly.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
That would be my guess.
Right. What was your reaction when It was Sunday morning when Dr. Tom Friedman from the CDC held a news conference giving us the news that the first nurse had been infected, Nina Pham. And he basically said, well, you know, it's a breach of protocol, meaning she just screwed up. She did something wrong.
Anger. That was my first reaction. Well, my first reaction was chills for this nurse, fear, and then anger. How dare they blame the nurse? It's the hospital's responsibility to properly train them for the donning and removal of the personal protective equipment. And there should have been somebody watching her. They should have had drills. And if there was somebody watching her and coaching her and was as well trained as she should have been, this wouldn't have happened.
Mm-hmm. We had a nurse call the other day who said, a nurse from Chicago, that her training consisted of 5 minutes online, and then there were 3 questions. You had this little presentation online. You watched a little video or whatever, and then there were 3 questions afterwards that you.
Scary.
That was it.
That's scary.
Could you possibly learn this online?
No. It physically has to be done, and somebody has to be watching you to make sure you're doing it properly. The ability to contaminate yourself is great, and people just need to be trained.
Yeah. So what have they been telling you at the hospital? What is it I don't want to get you in trouble with I already identified your hospital. But with your administrators or your boss at the hospital, what are they telling health workers, nurses at your hospital?
Yesterday when I got off, was right at the change of shift. So the night shift was getting ready to leave, and I worked the night shift. Day shift was there. We basically got a lecture admonishing us not to buy into the hype created by the media. And I just sat there thinking, you should be spending this time training us. And instead we're being reprimanded. Don't buy into the hype.
Yeah, talk about priorities out of order.
Yeah.
Don't buy into the hype that this could be, that this could spread, you mean? Or that this is a serious problem?
Right. Yeah, they even compared it to HIV back in the 1980s. And we've already discussed amongst ourselves, the nurses I work with, that with HIV, you can live 20 or 30 years if you take the proper drugs. With Ebola, you could be dead in 20 to 30 days. It's got an incredibly high mortality rate. And they're comparing apples to oranges. It's totally different. This is a scary, scary virus.
Well, I don't want to. I'm not fearful myself, right? Living in Washington D.C., but the idea that it could not happen in Washington D.C. I mean, this is a world capital.
Right.
I mean, Thomas Eric Duncan came to Dulles on his way to Dallas.
Yes.
Okay. If people are coming here from anywhere coming to the United States anywhere in the globe, there's a good chance, a good percentage of them are coming to Washington, D.C. This is an international city. We have a huge population of people from all different countries. So the idea that nobody from West Africa is going to come here.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, right?
We have a very good probability. Maybe in Southwest Florida, they might not be as concerned. But in Washington, D.C., we should be very, very concerned.
I'd have to say a lot less likely in Dallas than Washington.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I mean, he just happened to go there because he had family there, or his girlfriend there, or whatever, and friends there. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, I'm glad. I'm telling you, the National Nurses United, your union's been really right on top of this, right out front from the very beginning, on behalf of all the nurses of America. It's National Nurses United, nationalnursesunited.org. I hope people are hearing you. I think they are. I think people realize that certainly a lot of mistakes were made in Dallas, and that the rest of the nursing community here in the United States cannot be left so vulnerable as it were in Dallas. Kelly Fields, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Okay. I hope I never see you in the ER room, but if I do, I know I'll be in good hands.
I will take good care of you.
I'll be back with a quick parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, you know, of all the Senate races in the country, Kentucky is the one that interests me the most because I'd be so happy to see that smug Mitch McConnell sent ignominiously into retirement. That's why I've been so excited about Allison Grimes, a terrific candidate who's run a great campaign until now, when she suddenly stumbled on the question, did you vote for President Obama in 2012? Instead of being direct, she took the fifth, refused to answer, pleaded the sanctity of the secret ballot. That was dumb enough the first time, but then she turned around and did the same thing in her one and only debate with Mitch McConnell. What the hell was she thinking? Is she ashamed of voting for Obama? Look, she should have said, hey, I'm the Democratic candidate for Senate. Of course I voted for Obama. You don't think I would have voted for Mitt Romney, do you? Period. End of story. It could have been. Now, I only hope that on November 4, Allison Grimes remembers to vote for herself. God, Allison, get it together here, babe. Hey, folks, have a great day. I'll look for you again tomorrow. We'll see you then.
This is the Bill Press Show.